Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hello, this is Robert Smigel, and welcome to the BC edition of Canada's podcast, where we talk to entrepreneurs who are making it happen here in British Columbia. Our guest today is Nick Findler. Nick is an accomplished entrepreneur, angel investor, and venture capitalist. He is the CEO and founder of GoPublic.ai, a fintech go-public investment bank that unites world-changing businesses with $1 million to $50 million of growth capital, shell vehicles, and know-how to go public, both in Canada and on major stock exchanges around the world. Well, Nick, welcome to Canada's podcast, and thanks for taking the time today to be here for all our listeners.
Thanks for having me, Robert.
Fabulous. Okay, I want you to tell us a little bit more about yourself. Give us the details on your business. And are you from Vancouver, born and raised?
Yeah, I grew up just outside of Vancouver. I'd call Port Moody my hometown, so it's about 30 or 40 minutes outside of downtown Vancouver here. And I grew up a very entrepreneurial kid. My first couple pseudo businesses were started before the age of 10. Had a pressure washing business, had lots of lemonade stands, but really the one that sticks out and that I still kind of cherish is I used to go to golf courses all around my house, and I used to go into the bushes and found hundreds of golf balls every day, and I'd take them home, clean them up, and I'd sell them to all the dads on my street. So I had no input costs other than the time spent hunting golf balls, and I started making a couple $100 a week selling these golf balls. So that was really my first foray into entrepreneurship.
Sounds like the Vancouver version of Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, tell us about your business. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we are we're an investment bank that focuses on finding amazing companies that have some kind of mission statement that will better impact the world in some way. We partner with them and help them raise growth capital as well as taking them public in most cases. We'll typically partner with companies anywhere from 18 months to 6 months before they go public. We'll typically raise them a few $1 million in a initial sort of bridge stage financing, and then typically anywhere from 5 million up to as large as 50 million on a go public transaction.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So you probably need financing to start that kind of a business, I imagine. What's that look like, getting a venture capital banking company going like that?
Well, really, it's there isn't a whole lot of startup capital needed. It's really it's a connection business, and it's something that connection and bringing people closer together. And I'm sure we'll get into this at some point in the talk. Is something that's really important to me and really fills my cup, is bringing together the right people, the right ideas, capital, and so we there's a team of 9 of us that work full time on this, and our mission is really to find companies that are making a difference, and there's a lot of companies that are trying to find these businesses, and there's a lot of businesses out there, so you kiss a lot of frogs to get the princess. So we spend a lot of our time getting to know businesses intimately, doing due diligence, analysis, figuring out how big this opportunity is, and really the lens in which we, at the end of the day, look through for all of our portfolio companies is, if this company succeeds, will it matter? And so that's really where we start, and our ethos of our company is, if we as an investment bank are successful, will it matter? And if our portfolio companies deliver on their mission, will it matter? And so that's really the lens at which we look through.
So what kind of companies what vertical do you look at that you would entertain or spend time reviewing or looking at opportunities?
We're quite agnostic. You can make a difference in the world in a lot of different ways. So to give you some examples, some of the trends that we are intimately involved in right now are healthcare, plant-based foods, disease eradication and biotechnology, and food and beverage are sort of the 4 main pillars that we're working in right now. But we're agnostic. We're just looking for great teams, great missions. Normally, companies that have proven that their whatever service or product they offer, people do want and need capital, experience, connections, building out a team to kind of take that to the next level. And that's we're really an accelerant for companies.
Okay, we have a lot of listeners that are obviously startups and engineers, programmers, people like that may be starting companies that may not know too much about your industry. I want you to give me a key piece of knowledge or information about your industries that our listeners can learn from that they may not know about.
Well, I think something that's really interesting and really unique to Canada is our public venture capital system. Typically when people or entrepreneurs think about going public, they think their company's got to be worth billions of dollars and humongous revenues, and this sort of access to capital is hard to tap into. But what we have that's very unique in Canada and one of the top public venture capital systems in the world is you really, if your business is worth $5 to $25 million, so quite small in the grand scheme of things, and have a service or product offering that the public or the public investor can get excited about, very much like a Shark Tank type investment or Dragon's Den for here in Canada. There's actually a very vibrant public capital scene here where your company can actually go public, access capital now and access capital down the road. So it does a lot of things that can benefit entrepreneurs. One, obviously access to capital for growth, and that's goes without saying. But also having that visibility of being a public company also gives you a little more cachet, more companies. If you're doing B2B type businesses, your shareholders often become sort of your biggest fans and help you get deals done. So that visibility really helps. And then also creating liquidity for your investors. When you invest in a private company, your money can be locked up for 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even forever, and never see the light of day. And when you get public, it really creates a route to liquidity, not only for the early stage investors, but also the founders that have started the business and sort of all the other stakeholders along the road. And then the fourth really interesting thing is if you're in an industry that you would like to make acquisitions, or you think there's an opportunity to roll companies together, once you're public, you now have this public stock currency that you can use to acquire other businesses. And so we see that quite often with companies going through an M&A strategy that they wouldn't be able to unless they were public, because they just wouldn't have the cash to make those acquisitions.
So if someone was to approach you and say, hey, would you consider us? What are the things you look for?
Great team is really where it all starts. Because when you're a company of, the size that we look at is anywhere from 5 million to 100 million in valuation is typically the size we look at. We will, do angel investments in smaller deals, and we will look at bigger deals. That's kind of our sweet spot. So it starts with a great team. It starts with a visionary that's driving the ship, that's, likely the CEO of the company, and proven that people want their product or service. We don't invest in companies that are just idea stage. We want to see some level of traction. And what really gets us excited, and public venture capital money excited, is a business that's shown traction. You can inject a handful of millions of dollars into the company, and that money can help it scale to something that is doing 20, 30, 40, $50 million in sales, say 3 or 5 years from now. So, businesses that are growing at 15 or 20% a year are amazing and incredible. And I'm an investor in many of those companies. For public venture capital, we're looking for really that hockey stick curve potential. So that would be kind of the parameters at which we look through.
And you look for international companies, right? So you're not just focused on Canada?
Yeah, we work with companies all over the globe. So right now, the companies that we're working intimately with are a company out of New York called Plantable, which is a dietary change and lifestyle change company that helps people adopt a plant-centric diet that's backed by clinical research at some of the world's leading institutions. So to date, we've raised them $2 million. We're just about to head into a larger $6 million raise and a planned public listing here in this quarter coming up before the end of the year. We're also working with a company out of Israel called Forest Innovations, which is focused on eradicating some of the world's deadliest mosquito diseases, including dengue, Zika, malaria, and has found an environmentally friendly way to do so. We're also working with a healthy alternative to Coca-Cola based out of Greece that's grown quite rapidly and doing about 35 million revenue this year. So those are kind of the three businesses that we're intimate with at the moment and working on capital raises for and really taking them to the next level and getting them public. So yeah, we love Canadian businesses. We're all Canadian entrepreneurs, and so but we also love to partner with international companies.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we've learned a lot about you and your company. So let's talk about doing business in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. You are from Vancouver or British Columbia, Port Moody. What are the biggest benefits for you in being an entrepreneur in Vancouver, BC? I want you to give us some of the good points about starting a company here, but I also want you to give us some of the tough things or challenges you had so our listeners can keep an eye out for them.
Yes. I mean, some of the good things are, there is a lot of support here for entrepreneurship. Both from a mentorship standpoint, where I've been blessed to have amazing mentors that are very open to spending time and want to see myself and other entrepreneurs succeed. There's also a ton of opportunities in grant and government assistance. I also own a company called Grantus.ca that helps businesses access grant funding, as I've been accessing government funding for a while now and thought, why not create a company around it and put a really badass CEO in place to really help companies access that capital. So, the mentorship and support and government support is great. There's not a ton of red tape in getting companies started here. So I would say that's another benefit as well. So those would be, on the positive side. On the negative side, we are a small city and we're not a global financial hub yet. So, often when you're raising those kind of larger fundraising rounds, you're going to other cities, other countries. So, Toronto is definitely has a more grown up sort of venture capital system that's, it's much more suited for sort of bigger raises and bigger companies. Once you kind of eclipse Toronto, you're looking at Toronto, New York, Shanghai, kind of going more global. So, I think, and one of the things that got me so excited about Vancouver, and especially being from here and, graduating university about 8 years ago, was I saw this kind of meteoric rise of the city, so much capital coming here. Another amazing thing about Vancouver is it's so densely populated. I think that it's one of the most densely populated downtown cores in all of North America. So what I find amazing about living downtown is, within 3 or 4 blocks of my house, I have amazing entrepreneurs, amazing ideas, capital, everything you need to create great companies is all within a few blocks of my house. And so it makes creating and bringing people together and connecting a lot easier than if we were much more spread out. So I really love that density.
Well, we are Canada's podcast, but we do have a lot of international listeners. So this next question, I want you to speak to them. If you were to start all over again and you just moved here to Vancouver, British Columbia, but this time you don't know anyone, knowing what you know now, what would you do? And how would you go about starting all over again as an entrepreneur?
Well, there's a lot of great meetups here. There's a lot of great events that bring entrepreneurs together and funders. But I think, one of the best ways to meet people is, Vancouver is blessed to have such beautiful scenery and beaches and hikes. And I find that every time I put myself in some of those situations, I leave there having met someone cool. And, I think that really just, not being okay with being the one to say hello, whether it's in the elevator or on the street or at the beach, and really putting the effort into building those relationships can be extremely valuable. And so if I were to start over again, I would just immerse myself in the culture here, in the outdoor activities, and making sure that I wasn't afraid to be the first one to say hello.
Okay. Entrepreneurs are very disciplined people. So let's talk about your routine. What does the first hour look like for you when you get up in the morning? Do you have a specific routine or a ritual that helps you get motivated to start your day?
So that has changed over time. The last few months, my morning routine has actually been disrupted quite a bit. As I mentioned, we're doing deals in Israel, Greece. Some of our funders are in Australia. So some of the hours are very obscure times. So to give you an example, my first call was at 5:30 this morning. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to get up and have my morning ritual. So I'm typically up around between 5 and 6. I'm in the shower and most days I'm directly into my first couple calls. So those first couple hours of meetings from kind of 7 until 10 a.m. are pretty slammed. And after that, I typically take my dog for a nice long walk, clear my head a little bit, put my phone in my pocket, a lot of times on airplane mode for about half an hour, 45 minutes. Meditation's really important to me to kind of clear my head, get a good healthy breakfast, and a workout kind of typically all before noon, and then kind of the second half of my day gets going. So that's what the typical day looks like. But there's a lot less structure than there used to be with so many time zones involved in our business.
Okay, you've met a lot of entrepreneurs in the last few years. Do you think entrepreneurs have to be weird or unique in a positive way or are wired differently?
I would say for the most part, they are. They are wired differently. I believe entrepreneurship can be taught, but from what, and the circle that I've kind of gravitated towards and the friends, are, I would say my circle of friends is probably 95% entrepreneurs. And there seems to be this really intense lust for life and lust for risk and, lust for the excitement. And being an entrepreneur is very lonely at times. And you need to have people around you and things to keep you excited and things to keep the serotonin levels high when, there is, a lot of risk. And I think Elon Musk put it really well when he said that, entrepreneurship is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. And there is a lot of that where, you don't know where the next paycheck is going to come from sometimes. And so you really need to have a strong mind and also be a little bit delusional to, get past some of those fears and obstacles. So I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are, a little wonky, and I would say I would put myself in that category as well.
Okay, let's talk about how you educate yourself. What books are you reading now and why, or even audiobooks and or podcasts? And can you recommend any books for our listeners who are also entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So some of the best books I've read this year, there's a book I've read a couple times now called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He was a previous FBI hostage negotiator, and he gives a lot of tricks and tips to dealing with different types of people and negotiating and, really trying to create win-win-win scenarios. And that's, essentially what our business is we try and create a scenario where all of the stakeholders at the table win. And, often when you meet with a company, they've got, anywhere from 10 to 50 to 100 investors, and they all have to win, and the investors have to win, and us as a firm needs to win. So I spend a lot of time thinking about negotiation, strategizing, deal structuring. So that would be a book that I think is amazing. On the podcast side, I've been really enjoying the podcast called the All In Podcast. That's I've got a few great sort of high level entrepreneurs in it, including Chamath Palihapitiya, who's someone that I definitely look up to and spend a lot of time researching. So those would be the two recommendations that I'd have.
Okay, earlier in our conversation, you touched on all the beauty of the city, Vancouver, and all the things you can do. How do you relax and not think about work? And what are your favorite activities to do in BC? Do you ski, bike, kayak, golf, hike, or simply go for a drive?
Yeah. I snowboard a lot in the winter time, and that's a really great way for me to unplug. I love to walk, and I spend at least a few hours a day walking.
Seawall?
Sometimes seawall, yeah,
Mm.
seawall. You can find me out there even if it's pouring rain. I'm walking out there, and I would say half the time I'm alone with my thoughts, and half the time I'm on calls, and I just find my brain just works better when I'm moving. I don't know if it's the ADHD or what it is, but when I'm walking, my mind just feels at ease. So yeah, I spend a lot of time outside. I got one of my close business partners in Go Public AI lives up in Whistler, so we spend a lot of time out there in the woods. And we were actually a bunch of us went up there on the weekend, and we're swimming in these waterfall pools, and went for a nice hike and had the phones turned off for the day. So yeah, those are some of the ways that I try and escape the work. But to be honest, I love what I do. It really doesn't feel like work, and I feel truly impactful that we're able to find these companies that need growth capital. And I think there's founders don't spend enough time building relationships with investors as a whole or an aggregate. And that's what my team does full time. So we kind of become your capital raising arm of your business.
Okay. If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you like to do for a profession?
I mean, this was kind of always my dream to do something like this. So I feel very, very blessed, and it took time to kind of get into the spot that I'm in now, and being running my own business. And so I wouldn't change anything, but if I could have an alternate career, it would definitely be a professional athlete. I love to compete.
Professional snowboarder.
I don't know if I'd be a snowboarder, but probably basketball, hockey, football, one of those three. I truly love competition. I love figuring out how to get the most out of my team, and really understanding each person's individual desires and what gets them motivated. I find extremely interesting, something that I was really interested as a really young kid, which my parents found really weird about me, that some people needed a pat on the ass, and some people needed to be reprimanded, and some people just needed encouragement. So figuring out what made other people tick really got me excited. So yeah, I'd love to be a professional athlete.
What job could you not do?
I'm not a very detail-oriented person. I try, and I'm a sort of ready, aim, fire type of guy. So I like to surround my team with very kind of detail anal people. So anything super detail oriented, like an assistant or data entry or anything that's monotonous, I would be absolutely horrible at.
Okay, in business, what is your favorite word, quote, or sentence that you like to use?
Well, something that we've been using a lot. I mentioned at the beginning, if we succeed, will it matter? And it's a question we on our team calls we ask ourselves a lot. If we can succeed in whatever our new plan is to do, like, will it actually matter? And will we be sitting in our rocking chairs 50 years from now and look back? Will that move have actually moved the needle for humanity? So that's something that really sticks with me. Another one that I say to my partners and my friends all the time is actually just left foot, right foot. And that's to really symbolize that you really can't solve everything at once. You just need to pick a direction, and you just need to continuously and persistently march one foot after the other. And there's going to be so many roller coasters, and our world is a roller coaster. We work in 100% success space. We take no fees from companies unless we're successful in what we do in raising capital. So we have to be level-headed and just left foot, right foot, one after another, and just until we get the job done.
Okay. What's your least favorite word or sentence you do not like to hear?
don't like the words I can't.
Yeah.
And I think that if you believe that, you probably can't. But I think that that's just a belief issue. I used to really not like the word no. I hated being rejected, but it's funny how that I've trained myself to actually like become very fired up by the word no, and it's a maybe for later.
Yeah, I always like to say we'll find a way.
Yeah, I agree.
It's one of my favorites. Okay. Anything keeping you up at night these days, other than your late calls and early morning calls?
No, I sleep pretty good. I nothing really. I don't feel
Once
a
you're
lot
done,
of
you're done. Once you're done, you're done.
Once I'm done, I'm done. I feel very fortunate that the people that I have working with me at my team and my partners have all become family, and it's really important to do impactful work, but it's also extremely important to do it with people that you love and care about, and you can really stick together and really look at each other in the eyes and say, look, if we really bear down here and put our heads together and get through the hard times, like we could build something that really makes a difference. And so and it doesn't keep me up, but it's something that definitely keeps me motivated.
Okay. Do you have any advice that you may have received that you can pass on to entrepreneurs throughout Canada? Someone ever told you something that resonated with you that you think about frequently?
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, one piece of amazing advice I got was my first time really traveling. I was about 20 years old. I was with a friend named Max, and he'd been traveling quite a bit in his younger years. And I remember getting on this trip that we'd planned for about 6 months. We got to Rome. I'd been anticipating this trip for 6 months, and I was so excited to finally get out of Canada and like be on my own and be my own man. And when I got there and the first few cities we went to, I was really kind of underwhelmed. And we had this conversation about it, and he said, it really comes down to having no expectation and really just not being tied to the outcome of things, and really just doing the good work that it takes to get something done, and really just experience something for what it is and not what you think it should be. And so that kind of lesson in traveling actually really started applying into business, and the way that new opportunities would come. And I really just tried to stay out of thinking about what the outcome was and really just being in it and absorbing it. It's helped with friendships and intimate relationships, and so I find that the more that I can detach myself from the outcome or having expectations, the more that good things happen.
Okay, good. We're going to wrap things up here. Nick, how can our listeners get hold of you? And is there anything you'd like to add before you leave us today?
Nothing that I want to add. I encourage companies that are looking to go to the next level, whether you think you're ready to go public or not. We do help fund businesses that aren't going public. So if you are looking for capital and looking for expertise and guidance and advisory, please reach out to us. You can find us on our website at www.gopublic.ai. And if you want to shoot me an email directly, feel free. I'm nick@gopublic.ai. And just, wanted to say thank you for having me on the podcast. And I love listening to all the episodes and looking forward to sharing a little bit about our company and our mission with the world.
Awesome. Okay, Nick, thanks for coming on the show. I've learned a lot about you, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. Awesome. And to all our listeners, thanks for listening to Canada's podcast and listening to Nick's story. Like, comment, and subscribe to all our channels to get the latest podcasts from entrepreneurs across Canada. And we'll see you next time.